Hello, welcome to my channel. I will get over it one day. I'm sure I will. I'm sure that is not going to be the intro to this channel one day. Um, soon, soon it will not. The next video it will not be. Anyway, welcome to the channel, guys. So today I want to talk about things always change. I think we should not plan too far ahead into the future because it's just too much changes that you can't really see. I mean, you can always only plan like maybe 2, 3 years ahead, and that's even like plenty of time for things to change so dramatically that you can't even, comprehend. And I feel like that is such a different message that in the past where you feel like you have to plan everything out, otherwise you will be so left behind later. I think the key for the future is the ability to be flexible and the ability to keep up with change, resilience. I really hate that word. I know, like I've said it many times, but I feel like resilience is definitely a skill that everyone needs to have and adaptable to change. And because things will always be thrown our directions, we will have disasters thrown to us. And when it comes to our career, money, and everything, things will always change constantly. And you can never ever rely on one source of income. You can never ever rely on things always going the same. And I know, like, I think it's really devastating because sometimes we fought so hard to find a place in the world that just for us. And sometimes, like me, I felt sometimes few years back, 5 years back, I realized, oh, maybe this is my space. Maybe I can take a little bit of a breather and have a little bit of stability financially. And no, the carpet is being tugged from under me again, and I just have to admit that there is never ever going to be a stability out there when it comes to business. It's going to change. It's just very much how we have to see it these days. And I think and I know, like, it's so tiring to always keep up with changes in the world. I realize now, like, when I talk to my retiree friends, because, I'm friends with grandmas, 80 years old grandmas, and I get it, like, their reluctance to keep up with things, and it just becomes very confusing. Even I, as a 41 years old, find it very confusing to keep up with technology, the changes. When you're 81 years old, you probably already realize, like, oh, things are gonna change again anyway. Why do I have to learn this now so that after I finish mastering it, it's probably gonna change up again. So the skills that I'm going to retain is gonna be useless. Uh, I didn't really see it that way before. But now I get what they mean when they just become so ignorant about things. I feel like, yeah, I get it now. I'm not 80-year old, but I get to see the perspective. You have to always expect change to happen. You always have to have a backup plans to your backup plans. And that's not good. Mentally, I think the only way to cope is just to be prepared all the time in a relaxed manner. You have to budget it basically. And for people who don't have money like me, budgeting the emergency is never fun because you understand that even when you budget it, sometimes it's probably a lot less than what you need in the future. So that also can happen. And also sometimes your government can go rogue, meaning the finances in your government can suddenly go downward, where your currency that you're owning right now can have zero value, or inflated so much that the value becomes nominal. And it happens so many times in different countries. I think in Argentina recently that happened, and I forgot, like there are so many countries where their national currency is so becomes so degraded that the paper that the money is printed on is more valuable than the currency nominal values of the uh, note. You know, the note can be say like $1 trillion, Zimbabwe, like I think Zimbabwe and Zimbabwean. I don't know how to say it. Zimbabwean dollar, $1 trillion Zimbabwean dollar, for example, is probably it's gonna trading at $1 US. So a stack of it is probably only going to be like $5, for example, and it's, it's an example, and I know I didn't pronounce that correctly, but that happens a lot in different countries outside the Western world, and I think it used to happen in Germany in the start of World War I or something, if I'm not mistaken. I think you can search it. And then they did a whole financial reset and bring it back down to just a nominal value of 1 mark, 10 marks. While before the reset, it was like a million mark. Mark is the currency at that time. Before they have European Union, they have their own currency. Like France has franc. Uh, I think the Scandinavians still have a different currency for each country, and it's called crown or corona. So, but now it's like euro, right? Like most of the Western European countries are part of the European Union, therefore they use euro as their currency. But back then it was a different currency for each countries, like the rest of the world now. And so that can happen at any time. Suddenly you live in a country that you think, no, you're doing well, you have all these savings in the bank, and then suddenly you realize all that money that you saved so much and so long for becomes worthless. It becomes, the value is really, it's almost non-existent, and you can't even buy anything. You can't buy groceries with that money anymore. While maybe like a month ago you can buy a car, but suddenly you couldn't even buy grocery with the same amount of money. So I feel like this is not like the first time it happens. It happens all the time. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that it can happen at any time. Whatever it is that you're planning has to be so advanced that it is so robust that no worldly disaster can touch you. But we are human. We can't really plan for everything. Even when California had that wild bushfire, and suddenly all the insurance company basically saying we are not going to cover that anymore, and then they have to. This is all from TikTok. All the news that I got from TikTok back then was suddenly they have to put in a sanction that says that insurance company cannot change the terms or conditions, and they can't not renew the policies that are currently being held. So there should be no change of policies for the next year or so, so that they can protect the clients and customers, so from getting some kind of financial aid from the insurance that they have been paying just for that. And I heard also there have insurances where they stop covering for natural disasters. And it just feels like even insurance companies are no longer insuring. And we just have to keep faith, but in a practical manner. But I think going ahead in the future, what we need is this really strong resilience that things will be okay. Things will always constantly change, and you just have to flow with it. And being traumatic about the changes probably will happen. And I think we will always have to have tools for that. And again, you can always see like my tools, EMDR and Yoga Nidra, those kind of videos, so that you can see what type of tools I use to reduce my anxiety and my overthinking and stuff like that. So it's out there. YouTube is definitely a good source for uh, tools that will help you through change. But yeah, I feel like we can never ever plan too far ahead, and we can't really plan for everything. And in a lot of ways, I think that's really soothing, it's comforting because it means like we are all screwed. We are all screwed. And if we are all screwed, that means we're not alone, That means it's a community problem. That means we have people that we can work with to change the circumstances that we are in. And I think there is something to that. There is a bonding that happens. So even though if we have a lot of financial disaster looming, for example, if we don't have to do it alone, I think that's a plus for sure. Like you can always see it as a bonding opportunity for people. Of course, like unless it's being mishandled and becomes extremely traumatic experience. Because if I remember, like I watch a lot of Korean dramas, so there are a lot of dramas that touch about uh, the late '90s Asian financial crisis, and in Korean movies and dramas and entertainments, you can see a lot of uh, self unaliving happenings during that period because people are just so in debt and they can't pay anyone anything, and their honors are threatened, and these are serious things. And it's not only happening for one country, but because I'm only watching media entertainments, movies and videos from one country, South Korea, that's where a majority I get it from. And so it's not a light subject, it's definitely something that goes into people's soul, right? Like changes all the time. And it doesn't, like you go from a period of prosperity and suddenly you go to a period of scarcity and lack. A few years ago they probably would be able to expand and hire employees, and then suddenly you are unable to pay any of your money back and people are on you so much, and that creates so much stress and humiliation, I think, because they are a very proud country. So that also affected that. You can see that, and of course it's not something that is fixed. Of course now, only 26 years later, 27 years later, which is a very short amount of time. Once you get older, I'm only 40, but now I'm thinking, you know what, 27 years is not that long. And even now, like as a 41 years old, I'm thinking like 100 years is only 10 decades. That's not as long as I thought it would be in the past. Because like a decade is rolling by really quickly these days. um, Now like they're a first world country, or being considered as a first world country after the 2000s, so they rolled their faith very quickly. And if you didn't foresee that if you already condemn this country, for example, as a financial failure, then you probably would not have invested money in that country and reap the benefit now in 2025. I guess what I'm saying is financially, things will always change in the world, politically, and globally, especially now with the rise of oligarchs, and they control a lot of, rather than nations, these oligarchs is like the companies control financial markets. It's like this new empires. These corporations are the new empires, right? Like they have their fingers in all the countries in the world necessary. They reduce taxes so that they don't have to pay any. And just very dubious. And I feel like as an ordinary human being, it's very hard to track that. It's very hard to keep up with that. And we just have to always we be ready for change, but at the same time enjoy the present moment, because you can never know when it will change. And I think that's all we can do. We just have to hunker down, enjoy the present moment, enjoy the beautiness of the moment, and prepared based on your knowledge, and then let go, because you can never control things. Things will happen, and don't take it personally. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Don't take things personally. I think from my experience, it just happens. If you don't take it personally and you just stay alive and you keep going, and you see what happens, and maybe one day you are back in stability again. But I think by the time you reach stability again, you know, like, that is not going to be forever. And you still do the same. And you just have to be able to do that. Enjoy the present moment and prepare for change. Anyway, I think that's it for today, guys. Thanks for listening and hanging out with me for today's ramble. I'm Valerine, a digital creator, a solopreneur living in Sydney, Australia. If you want to check out my other works on the internet, you can go and see the description box below. All my links are down below. And I will see you guys later. Bye, everyone.